Today we're going to talk about the 13 areas of disability as stated under IDEA. First and foremost, though, I want to emphasize the fact that you are not a diagnostician. You should never diagnose a child. Rather, we talk about characteristics that our students have that are concerning to us. Do not ever tell a parent that a child probably has a particular diagnosis or disability, as you are not licensed, nor am I, to do so. We need to make sure that we rely on school psychologists, educational psychologists for those diagnoses. In addition, we are not medical professionals. We should not encourage parents to put their child on medication. We should not encourage their child to have them take less medication. We need to tell the parents the characteristics that we are seeing in the classroom and ask them to contact their family physician. These are areas in special education where families have sued teachers time and again for misdiagnosing or even diagnosing a child. We are not licensed to do so. So let's first take a look at high incidence disabilities. What does it mean to have a high incidence disability? High incidence disabilities are the categories where we see the highest percentages of diagnoses for students. This includes speech and language, learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and emotional disturbance. For speech and language, this means that there is a communication disorder, such as stuttering, impaired articulation, a language impairment, or a voice impairment, that adversely affects a child's educational performance. A specific learning disability is the broadest of categories in high incidence because a specific learning disability can appear in so many different lenses. It means a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes. It's involved in understanding or in using language, whether that's spoken or written. It manifests itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, write, read, spell, or perform mathematical calculations. It includes areas such as perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. However, it does not include a learning problem that is primarily the result of a visual, hearing, or motor disabilities, of mental retardation, of emotional disturbance, or of environmental, cultural, or economical disadvantage. What this means is that before we identify a child with a disability, we need to make sure that their eyes have been checked lately. Do they need glasses? Has their hearing been checked? Have they had the same opportunity at home to learn? Are there books in the home? Has the child been read to? Do they have educational toys? Determining whether or not a pupil has a specific learning disability. A local education agency or a public school or a county school must take into consideration the child's ability to reach their achievement. Now, in past years, we used the severe discrepancy model, comparing the child's intellectual ability with their achievement level. However, under IDEA 2004, we moved away from this discrepancy model as the only way to identify a child with a specific learning disability. Today, we also use response to intervention to identify a child. So using RTI and a discrepancy model, as long as a child qualifies under at least one of those, they can be identified with a specific learning disability. For a child to be identified with an emotional disturbance, a child must have a condition exhibiting one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to a marked degree that adversely affects the child's educational performance. This includes an ability to learn that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors, an inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers, inappropriate types of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. And the term includes schizophrenia. The term does not apply to children who are socially maladaptive unless it is determined that they have an emotional disturbance. Intellectual disabilities was renamed in April 2011. Formerly known as mental retardation, we now refer to those with lower IQs as those with intellectual disabilities. It's characterized by significant limitations both in intellectual functioning and in adaptive behavior, as expressed in conceptual, social, and practical adaptive skills. The disability has to originate prior to the age of 18. It includes intellectual and cognitive functioning, social and adaptive behavior, language, and academic skills. Autism was an area of disability that was added to IDEA in one of the amendments. Autism is a social behavior, a language problem. Children with autism have unique learning styles, and once a child is diagnosed with autism, you may come to learn that every child diagnosed with autism is uniquely different. Characteristics for children with autism in a qualitative social impairment area includes nonverbal behaviors such as eye gaze, facial expression, body posture, and gestures. Failure to develop peer relationships at a developmental level. Lack of social, emotional reciprocity. In a qualitative impairment in communication, children with autism have a delay or lack of spoken language, delay in ability to initiate or sustain conversations, and have stereotyped or repetitive use of language. Their behaviors are also restricted, repetitive. They're restricted patterns of interest. They may have a topic that they are absorbed with, such as animals, cars, stars, any topic area that they may just fixate on. There's a lack of varied, spontaneous, and social imitative play, preoccupation with parts or objects. They're repetitive, stereotypical motor mannerisms. What is different for each child with autism is the frequency and severity of these symptoms. We often also hear the term Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's syndrome was a separate category for many, many years. Asperger's syndrome is now categorized underneath the autism umbrella. However, those with Asperger's syndrome actually have wonderful verbal skills. However, they lack the ability to have transactional conversations. They perseverate on areas of topic of interest. Asperger's syndrome used to be its own category. Today, however, it is under the umbrella of autism. Children with Asperger's syndrome also sometimes are referred to as high-level autism. They still have impairments with nonverbal behaviors, eye gazing, facial expression, body posture, gestures. They struggle to develop peer relationships at developmental levels, and they lack social emotional reciprocity. They're also restricted with repetitive behaviors, restricted in the sense of an area of interest that they want to talk about constantly. Their inflexible adherence to specific non-functional routines or rituals. There's a lack of varied, spontaneous, social, imitative play, preoccupation with parts or objects, and also repetitive, stereotypical motor mannerisms. The disturbance causes significant impairments in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. No significant general delay, though, in language and cognitive development. Oftentimes, individuals who would have otherwise been characterized as having Asperger's syndrome or high-functioning autism actually have extremely high IQs, are incredibly intelligent, just that they're lacking the ability to socialize. Another category under IDEA is orthopedically impaired. The definition is severe impairment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. These could be caused by congenital abnormalities, impairments caused by a disease, or from an accident or other causes. It represents only about 1.3% of those served under IDEA. Common causes of orthopedically impaired include cerebral palsy, birth defect of spina bifida, and the rapidly increasing area of spinal cord injuries. Traumatic brain injury, or TBI, is also a growing area. TBI occurs after birth, often caused by forceful bumps, blows, or jolts to the head or body from another object that pierces the skull and enters the brain. Not all blows or jolts to the head result in TBI. TBI can cause temporary or short-term problems with normal brain function, problems with how the person thinks, understands, moves, communicates, and acts, and can lead to severe and permanent disabilities and even death. TBI is a result of accident, illness, or child abuse. Another area of disability is other health impaired. These are areas of disability that are typically diagnosed by a medical doctor, and these other health impairments affect the child's ability to access their education. This includes attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, attention deficit disorder, areas such as multiple sclerosis, diabetes, asthma, etc. These are health issues that do affect a child's ability to learn. Multiple disabilities is just as it states. This is for a child who's been diagnosed with 2 or more areas of disability as covered under IDEA. And the last 4 areas of disability are visual impairment, which includes blindness. Remember, we often talk about someone who is visually blind. However, they may not be totally blind. They may just need large print in order to access educational materials. Deafness is another category which includes people who are completely deaf, have no ability to hear sound. Hearing impairment would be for someone who has a partial hearing loss, whether that's total loss in one ear or partial loss in 1 or 2 ears. And the final category of the 13 is deaf-blindness, when someone is both unable to hear and unable to see to a degree that it affects their ability to have a free and appropriate public education.